Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 18th, 2023 Town Board meeting. If we all could please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could all remain standing, please, for a moment of silence. Please keep in your thoughts and prayers all of our first responders, police, fire, EMS, that serve us on a daily basis, keeping us safe. And please keep in your thoughts and prayers all of our service men and women who defend our freedom every day. Thank you. Amen. Okay, from my right, could I have introductions, please?
Good evening, Diana Quast, Town Clerk.
Deputy Town Supervisor, Councilman Ed Lachterman.
Town Supervisor Tom Diana.
Sergio Esposito, Councilman.
Councilwoman Luciana Howitt.
Mary Capocia, Councilwoman.
Adam Rodriguez, Town Attorney.
And that's all we got here today. Dave's vacationing, so he's not with us today. Okay, I'm going to move on to the Supervisor's report. Okay. As we know, we've had quite the deluge of rain. Some of us know better than others, unfortunately. Last Monday, when we had all that rain, there was a tremendous amount of water that could not be dispersed through all the places that it's supposed to go. The bridges were overflowing, water was taking different directions, culvert drains and so forth overflowed in places they've never overflowed before. In recent times, at this point, we are going to have a meeting tomorrow with FEMA to discuss a lot of different options. But I want everybody out there just to please register with FEMA at www.disasterassistance.gov and download the FEMA app. Or you can call them at 1-800-621-3362 for information and go register. Please, if you've had any type of problems due to flooding, keep your receipts. Make sure you take pictures, movies, etc., so that you have all the information you need when and if FEMA does come through for the individual residents. I will have more information. We'll be putting it up on the website at some point tomorrow. I want to make sure that our community is made whole. I visited a bunch of residents down on Brook Street today that were flooded beyond belief. They had 4 and 5 feet of water in their basements, which they've never had before. The brook that goes onto Shrub Oak by Mountain Brook Road that leads into the little pond there was totally overflown and actually filled or went almost up to the pool levels. It was quite the thing to see. They have dumpsters there and so forth this time, and they're cleaning out, drying out, and so forth. So please, any problems with disaster, please go to www.disasterassistance.gov and download the FEMA app, or go call 800-621-3362 for more information and to go register. And once again, I'll be getting more information up on the website as it comes to us from FEMA. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have a lot more information to share with everyone. But everybody was affected. I'm going to be going into that a little bit more later. I don't see, there's our engineer back there. We actually had an issue. Some people were saying that, look how fast Par 3 golf course was taken care of. That was on some of the Facebook pages that people had advised me of. Bottom line is we didn't do anything to par 3 golf course. That is a floodplain. That has been a floodplain forever. That emptied itself. It did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm just saying, yeah. I've been a Sherwood resident for a lot of years, and we knew it.
Okay. Also, the mall is the same thing. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Mother Nature made her place, and they fucked her.
Okay.
That's all right. That's all right. We got to beat.
Courtesy the floor. You take it on.
Anyway, so the amount of water that we got, it was I think it was 8.2 inches, 8.1 inches. But what's a point amongst people at that point? In like 6 hours, was much more than anybody had ever thought about. We have residents that bought houses in floodplain. All right, and I'm going to have the engineer come up and give us a little dissertation on that a little bit later. Lake Osceola was filled to capacity, but it was in a floodplain, as was the lake that I talked about, as was Mohegan Lake. There's things that still have to be done. There's bridges that have to be checked. There's culverts that have to be checked. And there's drainage systems that need to be checked and or improved so that we don't have these problems again. But once again, that's going to take time. That may take the Corps of Army Engineers. We're on it, folks. One of my terms, we're on it, okay? Don't think that these things go unseen. I've lived in this area a long time. I've seen a lot of weather conditions that have come and gone. And this was one of the ones I haven't seen the likes of since probably Hurricane Floyd. So, all right. Let's go on some happier things. Attended the Mass at St. Pat's, the 125th anniversary Mass and picnic. It was a really good time. I didn't get much time to spend at the picnic, and I'll tell you why as I go on here. But it was a very nice Mass and a nice time there at the picnic. The Mohegan Lake Improvement District. I don't know if Ken Belfer's here tonight. There he is. There's the guy right there. All right, Mr. Lake himself, who takes care of that lake, knows more about that lake than probably anybody else. That lake is going to be the most studied lake probably in New York State. Am I right, Ken? Yes. Yep. We got buoys that tell us things. We have aeration that's given the water air, that's making it better within a short period of time. And I was proud to be at the ribbon cutting for their new aeration system and attend some of the events at Lake Day. And I didn't get eaten up too bad by mosquitoes. I don't know how that worked, but it was okay. Had a good time. And last but certainly not least was our 12-inch water main break on Route 35 on Sunday. And that's kind of the reason I couldn't attend too much of the picnic at St. Pat's. Right about the time I was having my first bite of the hot dog, I got the call that there's a water main break on Route 35 in between Greenwood Street and Quaker Church Road, which devoured about a quarter of the lane going out of town. Our water department responded. They got it shut off. There was some issues there with traffic for a little while. We closed off the roadway and got the main fixed, backfilled, and the road reopened by 8:30 the next morning. Sorry for any inconvenience that you may have had getting back and forth on Route 35 for that brief period of time. But once again, big kudos go out to our water department and our highway department, who work hand in glove together to get the job done. The New York State DOT came out. They gave us a hand to get the job done so that we didn't inconvenience too many people for too long. We thought it was going to go a little bit quicker and we could have opened the road a little quicker, but the darn pavement they brought was too hot. We couldn't get trucks and cars go over it because they would have been sinking into it until it cooled down. So that was the one thing we had to wait for. But other than that, that was the biggest part of our problem. Well, not the biggest part of our problem, but the biggest part of our problem getting the roadway reopened. And thank everybody for their patience. All right, we going to go on to a very, very stinky subject. And that's our garbage problem, okay? We take this very serious, and we're working on ends to the means at this point. At this point, the steps we've taken to move forward, one of the steps we've taken to move forward, and it's going to continue should the problems continue. We have already fined the garbage company $59,500 last week. I understand your frustration. I have it as well. I live in town. My garbage doesn't get picked up on time. His doesn't, hers doesn't, and hers doesn't. So we're all in the same boat, folks, and we're working to correct it. We're not working to supply them with anything that makes it better for them. We want to make it better for the people. Probably the biggest frustration that I've seen is not knowing when, and that I've heard is not knowing when your garbage and or recycling is going to be picked up. Now, I understand the garbage is pretty regular. It may not be, the usual same time every day, but it is, from what I understand, picked up at about at least picked up on the same day. So we are working from an ends. We are working for an ends to the means, and believe me, once again, we are on this, and the fines are going to continue. I'd like to, at this point, that's going to be about the end of my report. I would like to call up my R&R foreman, Phil Marino, and just to give us a high level on what's going on. And Adam, if you would fill in at this point of what further actions may and will be taken.
Sure, Supervisor.
Well, at this point, my office is, you call my office. Matter of fact, if you call my office and you get a busy signal, that means both women are on the phone. So either leave a voice message or you can call back. What we do is we are documenting everything that's supposed to happen according to the contract. And we are working with the supervisor's office and with council being guided. I send some of my people out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they ride the day before's recycling and trash routes. And this way, I know by 6:30 exactly what they didn't pick up the day before, because they are out there, late in the evening. So I really don't have a good handle on if somebody called me up at 4 o'clock and said their recycling wasn't picked up. I have to know for a fact the next day, and then we just pass that on. I pass that on. I document everything. Like I said, we're working very close with the supervisor's office. Too close. His coffee's not that good in the office, but I go there anyway 3-4 times a day. And I'm being guided by Adam. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Adam, you want to continue on that?
Sure. So we've taken some significant steps to protect the town's interests. To some degree, those steps that were sort of available to us are set out in the contract. The contract provides for a certain mechanism to terminate, right, or place the company in default. So we did issue a 7-day notice of default and cure, which, as I said, is set out in the contract, in order to place the town in a position to terminate the contract if it finds that that's in its best interest to do so. The contract also provides for significant penalties, which the supervisor mentioned, which have already been implemented to the tune of $60,000. Those penalties continue to accrue at the clip of $1,500 per penalty per day for every violation, and they'll continue to be assessed. But termination can't happen, in a vacuum. It has to be done responsibly. So the supervisor and staff, as mentioned, have been taking some significant steps to place the town in a position so that if it does have to terminate the contract, it can do so responsibly and ensure that the services that the residents deserve and expect are being met.
Okay, very good. And lastly, before I turn it over to my reports from the council, Dan, can you come up, please? I want to give you something that you can show the folks on. We just happen to have printed out the Osceola Lake area floodplain. Did you get anything
I
to
emailed you the
Diana
PDFs.
on that possibly?
There was 2 PDFs. You don't have to put them up in any particular order. So what I wanted to do is speak a little bit to stormwater, how we predict what's going to happen, and how we deal with what actually happens. So the town works with FEMA, who develops the flood maps. And anybody who ever had to pay flood insurance, typically when you're financing a home, your mortgage company looks, they see if you're in a floodplain, and since they usually own more of the house than you do, they insist that you have flood insurance because of the risk associated with it. Now, the map I have up there, so this one is in the area of Shrub Oak. That hatched area is the lake, which is part of the whole Shrub Oak Lake community over there. The middle striped area is what's called the floodway, and that's the area where you're going to see high velocities during a big storm. And then the bluish area, that's the 100-year floodplain. And then that sort of tan area on the outskirts, that's the 500-year flood. So I'll speak a little bit to it. Hopefully your eyes don't glaze over, but just to inform you as to like how we do we do a lot of this modeling when projects come in to determine that the developer is appropriately sizing the practices to ensure there aren't increases. So in our area, the 100-year storm is about a little over 9 inches. So a lot of people go around saying, it's the third 100-year storm we've had this year. No, that doesn't happen. We've had bad storms. But in this case, one of the things that's happened is in our modeling we do for, you have to make certain assumptions when we compare the existing condition and proposed condition. We look at a certain rainfall distribution. And for our area, that historically has been a hurricane coming up the coast, which has a typical distribution of rainfall. So that 9.1 inches basically follows almost like a bell curve kind of pattern. What's happening now is our big storms are actually thunderstorms. And it's not like a big system moving in. We've just got these pockets popping up. So based upon some of the weather station stuff, we have a rain gauge at the plant. It looks like in the Shrub Oak area, there was, I think, about 8.8 inches of rain. So that's kind of the 100-year storm. Mm-hmm. And that distribution is over 24 hours. Well, the reality was that event probably was like 15 to 17 hours. So not only was it like the 100-year storm distribution, the amount of rainfall was compressed in a much tighter time frame. But so the bottom line is these maps prepared by FEMA were pretty much right. And this is based upon detailed modeling. They consider all the culverts, the dams, and the flows generated by that 100-year storm. So based upon this, it's kind of no surprise what happened. Maybe, Diana, could you just move to the other one? The other one takes us to Lake Osceola, but if you go to that one,
That's not Lake Osceola.
Not quite like I remember it.
So you can see, the extent, of how much areas, a lot of the homes around the lake are going to be inundated.
The blue area is what again?
The 100-year
100 years,
floodplain.
That's
So, it's unfortunate.
And that's 9 inches, and we received 8.1.
Right.
Eight.
So that was truly,
Oh, 8.8?
yeah.
Oh.
So that was truly the 100-year storm. I mean, we're pretty damn close. And like I
Pretty
say,
close.
it probably got there because the time frame was compressed. The intensity was there. Now, because it's these thunderstorms, the rain gauge at the plant, the Greenwood Street, they had just under 6 inches of rain. So in just that short span of area, things were that different. and it just goes to this whole issue of it's not hurricanes that are whacking us now. It's these intense thunderstorms that are creating this, and it's hit and miss. Where, if you're in the right cell when it hits, you're going to get a lot of water. And, and if you looked at all the maps, Tom has the big one there, you'll see the mall was going to get water, the golf course was going to get water. So, the parking lot for Shrub Oak Pool is going to be underwater. So in that regard, FEMA got it right. It's shouldn't be a surprise. And, people who live in these floodplains have to plan accordingly. In some places what FEMA does, if there's if you have flood insurance, what they do for flood mitigation, they do a cost-benefit analysis, and they say, is it worth it for us to raise a house to prevent flooding? Because the benefit will be that we don't have to keep paying out claims on it. So that's, so I just wanted to clarify,
FEMA would do that? Did you say? I'm sorry.
So they would
I'm
mandate
aware
the
that-
homeowner to do it.
I'm aware that they did it after Sandy. I know they did it on a lot of homes in Long Island.
We also did a lot of that by the harbor in Mamaroneck as well. All of our pool systems had to be on stilts. Everything had to go back up.
Right. So it
Yeah, I remember that.
so I'm sure they'll be,
Joe, could you
doing a
close that door back there?
post-mortem on this, and that's the kind of thing they'll be looking at. Is there things, they'll help out with the losses, but are there things they can do to minimize future losses? And in some cases, it's, sometimes there's a no-brainer, and other times some of these things are just way too expensive.
But it's my
Shrub Oak Brook is a tough one.
Yeah.
But it's my understanding that we declared the state of emergency in Yorktown, and then that moved up the ladder, up the food chain to the state, and Governor Hochul signed off on the state of emergency. Now it's at the desk of President Biden, and he needs to sign off in order for the FEMA money to actually be available. Because a lot of people have called and said, you know what, I went on this site, and they said there's no state of emergency over here. And that's simply because, we're looking at the federal level, and we haven't gotten there yet. It's there, but it hasn't been completed. It's my understanding that once President Biden signs off on it, God willing, there will be FEMA money available, but the first wave of it will actually be for infrastructure.
Yeah.
Town infrastructure, it'll be solely for that. And then we have to make some kind of a declaration to see if we could even get money for our residents, which is like vitally important, right? Is that accurate?
That's correct. The documentation that we have to, the doctrine has to be then passed up almost through the same channels again to get money for our residents. And that's some of the things that I want to find out at tomorrow's meeting, to make sure that we're in queue to help our residents out, which is crucial, because the one house I was at, the fellow lost his job. He gave up his flood insurance because he couldn't afford it and feed his family too. And the only thing he has is homeowners. Well, the homeowners doesn't cover the flood if you have to have flood insurance on a certain zone.
Yeah.
I mean, it was up to the rafters in his basement, from what I understand. I felt terrible for him, and we'll do as much as we can do to try and get him some type of relief. But once again, you have to keep the accurate records at this point, whether it's a dumpster, plastic bags, whatever it might be, or the aspirin that you got to go out and buy for your headache that you got at this point in time.
It's such a shame.
Yep. Keep photos, videos, receipts, et cetera, et cetera. I can't.
One of the other things that you do have to do is you have to put your claim in through your insurance and keep the declination letter. So if the money does come through, they're going to need that declination letter. So put it through your insurance.
And they've denied pretty much
Right.
everybody that's
So they
reached
have
out
to
to me.
keep that letter.
But it is important that people, that our citizens understand, the whole FEMA procedure,
Right.
and how the ladder, how you climb the ladder and get to a point where our residents actually get some relief as well. And that's I think important to put out there.
With this particular map that's up here right now, we had a family there that Lake Osceola actually went up to their back door. Okay, it's on a floodplain. The unfortunate part of it is that her complete septic system is in the backyard. So the house is basically unusable until such time as the water recedes. And, they can utilize the septic system. They'll probably have to get the tank pumped or whatever at this point in time, just so that it works as it should. But how houses and et cetera are sold in this area is really not our responsibility. It's the responsibility of the buyer to really go forth and check. I mean, if somebody pays cash for their house and they don't go through the whole process of getting, the actual maps such as this, and they buy that piece of property, they need to have the proper insurance, if they can even get it, right, Dan, in a situation like that? Or they could probably get it, but it's going to cost them big dollars.
But yeah, the policies can get pretty
Dan,
expensive.
I have a question. So Lake Osceola is privately owned up into a certain part. So I guess everyone on the lake owns a certain amount of feet into the lake, and then the lake is actually owned by someone.
I don't think anybody knows who owns the lake.
Nobody knows who owns the lake.
So my question is, what's in that lake? Like, can a contractor who might need sand come in, muck it, and see if they can?
Well, that's not going to change anything.
Jimmy Hoffa's.
Because the only.
I'm just thinking there might be sand at the bottom of it. It might move things along, and then a concrete company could use the sand, and somebody would have a place for the water to go.
The issue isn't the depth of the
would lose
lake,
their
because
mind.
what'll happen is you dig a hole, the water's just going to fill it back in. The issue is the constraint in the downstream channel, Shrub Oak Brook.
To move through, to make
Right,
them.
that's the bottleneck. That's really what defines the level in the lake and defines the properties that flood.
And we have taken steps. I had Mohegan Fire Department put their fast response boat in there. I went out with them, and we went to the exit point of the lake, and I'm a little backwards. I think it's down that way where it says flood. I'm not sure. Or floodway.
Nobody owns the lake. I live right there.
Yeah.
They're private homes.
Okay, hold on, John. John,
It's correct.
stand by. We'll get you up here. But we went down, we went to the mouth of the lake. It's clear. The exit point of that lake is clear. We, as a town, have cleared our streams and our exit points as well as we can have cleared them. They're open, they're flowing. It's just that it was a lot of water in a short period of time that couldn't transverse out as quickly as everybody would have hoped.
And another point to make is that the stream where it drains into passes through many culverts. One goes directly under the Route 6. That culvert is a state-owned culvert. We're really not even allowed to go in there. Then it passes through one of our culverts. Then it passes through a culvert that's owned by the mall, who's been, I believe, has been responsive.
Yeah,
I've
They've
called
been
them
very
several
responsive.
times. They've done the right thing, and so it's this twisty, windy, path, and it's not just owned by the town. As a matter of fact, we took this person on a tour, the supervisor and I, and our culverts were as clear as could be. They were open at that time anyway. And so, we are doing what we need to do, but it's just the amount of rain was ridiculous. It was just, we went to Pennsylvania. I went to Pennsylvania with my son, got up 9 o'clock in the morning, drove down there. We had two games, one at 1 o'clock, one at 5:30. Even in Pennsylvania, we were in the second inning. The sky opened up. The amount of water that came down. They canceled that game, canceled the 5:30 game. We got back in the car, drove back up the next morning because we were supposed to stay for the next game. And the next morning, there was so much rain. The next morning, the whole next day that was a Sunday. That was canceled. So this is going on everywhere. It's just devastating. I
we're
feel
seeing these very intense thunderstorms.
Yeah. I feel for this person. I was up. She called. I was up at 4:30 in the morning trying to find a clear path. I spoke to the Yorktown Police Department. I located a hotel for her, and we got her a clear path on where the roads were open because so many roads were closed. So I'm on the phone with Yorktown Police, who were more than helpful, just to get her a clear path to the hotel in Mount Kisco, so this way she could get her family to safety.
Oh, and by the way, thank you,
it's just
Yorktown
very
Police,
sad.
for Route 35, too. They were out there throughout the night, keeping it closed for everybody. Thank you for reminding me of that.
And, on the FEMA stuff, actually, there's sort of two buckets or two programs we're dealing with. Like with the state of emergency, My understanding is they will be looking toward damages that have been occurred, both municipal and I think private. So it's actual damages. Now, separate and apart from that, annually we work with Westchester County and we put in an application for flood mitigation. And this is what I was talking about, that we have a number of projects where we make the argument that a project's, if we replace a bridge or make it bigger, it's going to cost X amount of dollars, but there's a potential reduction in claims from people. There's that sort of thing. Like we have a chronic. We have a gentleman there on Greenwood Street, right by the plant, who's like the last stop before the Halleck's Mill Brook goes under the bridge. It's on a regular basis. His home's under 4 feet of water. That's like one of those things. Like it makes you say, should FEMA just buy the house, or raise it up, because it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah. All right.
So
Dan, thank you so much
All right.
Thank you,
for
Dan.
a high-level interlude here for this storm.
Your eyes didn't glaze over too much.
My eyes
No,
didn't
that was
glaze.
good, thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to reports from the council, starting on my right. Ed?
Sure. And just to, add a little bit, Tom and I were driving around at 5 o'clock that morning, looking at some of the damage and trying to assist some people, and it was just mind-blowing how devastating some of the areas were. And we weren't even hit the worst. You look at what happened in Highland, and you look at what happened across the river, so just Mother Nature was not too happy, I guess. So on to a couple things. Yorktown Lions summer concerts have also been affected by the rain. The first two were inside. First time in probably 5 or 6 years that we've had to have a concert inside. The next concert is next week. It's a group called Back to the Garden, 1969. It is a Woodstock tribute. Then we follow on August 20th with Groupe du Jour, and they do a whole mix of music. August 20th, is that? Oh, no, I'm sorry. July 23rd is our next one, then August 6th with Rock Steady Dance Band. Then Groupe du Jour, and then we finish on August 27th with our military tribute concert with Jessica Lynn. And a special guest would be Alyssa Martin and the Golden Apple Chorus, and that concert starts at 5 o'clock instead of 6 like all the others. The concerts are outside at the Jack DeVito Veterans Memorial Field and gazebo. Hopefully. If not, we do go into the Yorktown stage. There is seating for about 550 people in there. They did a beautiful job in the renovation, so it's worth coming out just to see it. And people really enjoyed the show, and I think more than anything, the air conditioning over the weekend that we had. So the Veterans Advisory meetings, as well as the Senior Advisory meetings, and the Teen Center are all closed for the summer or off for the summer. So we will start up with our Veterans Advisory and our Senior Advisory meetings the third week of September, Wednesday and Friday, respectively. And then the Teen Center will reopen as they go back to school. That's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you, Ed. Sergio?
Well, if we could get rid of the rain and the smoke, maybe the summer could start. I'm not sure if that's going to happen this year. But I was driving back and forth to Pennsylvania, as you heard, during Lake Day, so I apologize for missing it. I heard the weather held out up here, at least in Pennsylvania, and you guys had a wonderful time. So congratulations to that. We had a grand opening with Ashley Furniture. The Part 3, or the Links at Valley Fields, opened, then closed, then opened again. And just like the supervisor said, it's made to flood and drain very quickly. And I think that's what saved the greens there, because it was actually engineered like that years and years and years ago. Quite honestly, I'm amazed that it actually worked. So they're back open. And I know that the library had a summer reading kickoff, which I think you were there for. Were you there for?
Yes, I was.
And that was June 23rd. I think, we've...
Pete the Cat.
Pete the Cat?
Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat was there.
Pete the Cat was there, too. And And so I think I'm going to end it there, and I'm happy to see everybody back, and I'm going to pass it off.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to not say anything that was somber there. I just want to thank Ken and Randall for allowing me to lead the hike on Lake Day. It was really great, being outside, also to see what Mother Nature did and how the water brought us some goodies, even the goodies that we needed to remove. We have some beautiful places here in Yorktown, and I think that makes us, off the top, off the charts, super special. And I'm just so grateful that I got to go in there and enjoy those little moments with my kids. So I'll just leave it at that. Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, Yorktown. I'm not going to piggyback on any of that, what they said, but I do want to thank everybody, our PD, our highway, sewer, water, all our town departments, as well as the residents. We were out, Tommy and I, and we saw neighbors helping neighbors. We really are a very special community. So thank you to everybody for being patient with all of us and with everything going on. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I thank you. Next, we have our poet laureate, John
It's not Sergio tonight.
Owen. It's
One
not.
further thing on the town, on a terrible rain Sunday, if you flip your radio, they were playing ball at Yankee Stadium. It was sunny 40 miles south of us.
Yep. It's that pocket.
I had pneumonia for 2.5 months, and I want to thank Sergio for eloquently reading, and I'm sorry that he had to take any heat for my last poem that I still think was even-handed where Shade didn't. I was trying to take the heat out of this discussion, and instead that led to it. So, an AI didn't write this. Can AI replace the poet's heart with algorithms and a robot heart? It may write verse that's technically sound, but beauty and emotion can't be found. The passion felt when hearts entwine, or tears that foam from a poignant line. Poetry is more than just a rhyme, it's the expression of the human mind. So let us cherish the human touch, the artistry that we love so much. For though machines may write their best, the soul of poetry they'll never possess. Oh, I lied. And I did write this. I merely write a 16-line poem in the style of Robert Louis Stevenson about whether AI can replace poets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John sits up a little higher than Lake Osceola. I know you didn't get flooded.
No, it's the...
Step up here if you'd like to say something.
There were two beaches. There was a private beach and a public beach. Neither of them are in operation anymore. There are houses on one side of the lake, my side, Better Valley Market. There's nothing on the other side at Route 6. So it's not privately owned. It's a regular lake.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks, John.
I think next week we should have a motion about making AI our new poet laureate.
Yeah, John, I think AI is taking over for you. That's all there is to it. Okay. I'd like to open up the floor for public comment. As a reminder, you can always contact us. You don't have to wait for courtesy of the floor. You can always call the town hall, our town officials, our town departments. We are there to work for you. You can visit the town website at www.yorktownny.org. You can find all the contact information for everybody here on the dais, town clerk, even town attorney, and of course your elected officials. As a reminder, there is a 3-minute limit on your comments for courtesy of the floor, and we ask you please to keep them directed to the town board, and we ask, as always, that your comments remain focused and respectful. Okay, courtesy of the floor is now open. Mr. Kopstein.
Good evening, Jay Kopstein. At the end of last year, as a result of a competitive bidding process for a carting contract, the town board contracted with who appeared to be the lowest responsible bidder, Competitive Carting. Beginning in January of this year, Competitive Carting began their carting operations at Yorktown. Problems with contract compliance began with the start of their operations. I believe there were 20 pickup days during the month of January, with twice that number of excuses for non-compliance from Competitive. The town supervisor brought the representative before the town board to explain the reasons for non-compliance with the contract. The town board, totally within their discretion, gave Competitive Carding a short but reasonable time to correct the contractual deficiencies. 6.5 months into the contract, things have not gotten better. They have gotten worse. The town supervisor, with the support of the town board, must be decisive and direct the town attorney to immediately take the necessary legal actions to terminate the contract with Competitive Carding. Further, the town attorney should be directed to take the necessary legal actions to execute against any performance bond posted by Competitive Carding for noncompliance. The town board must then bring in a carding contractor with the experience and wherewithal necessary to perform the required carding services. Failure to take decisive action may result in other town contractors to engage in similar shenanigans. I'd like to point out that according to the town website, Competitive was served with their 7-day notice on July 6th, which is more than 7 days ago. On another note, since I've got almost a minute, local homeowners insurance does not cover land flooding.
That's right.
You
Correct.
have to have a policy under the National Flood Insurance Program, and that begins when 1 acre is flooded. So if you hold a mortgage and you're in a floodplain, most banks, most mortgage holders require NFIP. So check and file under that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jag.
Courtesy of the floor. Good evening.
Good evening.
Take your time.
Supervisor, yeah. George Campolo, 18-year Yorktown resident.
Hey, George.
Just a question for potential future use here, courtesy of the floor. If 5 or 6 of us, all neighbors who have been dealing with a problem for many years, come up together, could we have more than 3 minutes? Not necessarily 15 or 18, but do we need to have a baton race, or can we come up jointly? That's really the question.
You can have a spokesman. Well, go ahead. Go ahead with your. Is that just your question tonight?
Yeah, no,
or-
I'm going to defer for now. It's
Oh,
being
okay.
worked on, and it may be unnecessary to make it, to present it in front of you. But I just wanted to find out if I do have to organize something, if we could do it jointly, or if it has to be a relay race.
Well,
That's-
each one gets 3 minutes. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we
you
come
can
up
all
together.
stay together and support each other and speak for 3 minutes each.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. That's all I really needed to know
I mean,
tonight.
I think you could be up here together. I just, but everybody's going to
Everybody
be
get.
limited.
Everybody
to
gets
their
their
3
limited
minutes.
3
Right.
minutes.
So it would,
Like a
would be
baton
one
race, like you said.
continuous thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Quite
You're
welcome.
welcome. Thanks, George.
Hi, Carl Tegmeyer. Lived in Yorktown since 1981, whatever the years are for that. You received a letter last week, basically by email, that was from the Yorktown Community Dentist. We were urging you to make completion of the Catskill fluoridation project a priority. I authored that letter, as I did a letter 10 years ago when the board actually wanted a town hearing to see if we were going to continue community water fluoridation. This room was packed. I mean, it was standing room only. Dentists, residents, even the Commissioner of Health, Dr. Amler, was here. After hearing our testimony, the board basically voted to continue the fluoridation. You're all basically new to this issue, and that letter we sent you this week was basically to bring you up to date and why we thought this should be a priority. We know you care about this town. We know you care about the residents. That's why you're there, basically. And basically, this is a public health issue. And it's not only a public health issue. When you say that, it's a health issue for every individual in town. Not having community water fluoridation for 10 years has unnecessarily and had deleterious effects, not only on dental health, but also on people that live in town that have chronic inflammatory medical conditions, such as coronary artery disease, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, to name a few. According to the CDC, 40% of all Americans have a chronic inflammatory medical condition. In the last decade, there's been hundreds of studies in medical and dental journals that show poor gum health has an impact basically on these medical conditions, making them worse. Also, if you look at the CDC, they will tell you that 50% of Americans have some form of gum problem. Community ware fluoridation basically helps promote good gum health. Children who have grown up in this town over the last 10 years have more cavities, will continue to get more cavities over their lifetime because in comparison to children that grew up into a fluoridated area. We did send you a study by Dr. Jay Kumar, basically, who looked at 0% fluoridated Rockland and 80% fluoridated Westchester County, and the kids over there in Rockland had 20% more cavities. Juneau, Alaska, when they basically stopped their community water fluoridation, there was a jump of 67% of cavities in children 6 years and under. As healthcare professionals, we can see no more important issue before this board than the health and well-being of the residents of all ages of this town, and urge you to make this completion of the fluoridation project a top priority. You know, what to say about this town, essentially, that you put something like health and well-being on the back burner for 10 years? What to say about leadership? We are hoping you are the leadership that's going to bring us across the finish line. Thank you.
Oh, I like that one, Carl.
Thank you.
Good one.
All right,
Good one.
thank you.
Good evening. Dan Strauss, 57-year resident.
I did.
I'm not going to, well, I back Mr. Copstein 100% when he said. I sent you an email last Wednesday, which wasn't replied to, but that's your prerogative. So I'm just going to quote a couple of things from that. The only reason my garbage wasn't picked up early on Monday was because of the threat of fines. That was already 2 days later. Do you think the owner really cares? Not really. I understand now he's been fined $50,000 or $59,000, if I heard correctly. What is going to say that he's going to pay the fines? You had a meeting last Tuesday where there was this discussion with Parks and Rec, which I thought was kind of ludicrous. But you made a comment a couple of times, there's no problem till there is a problem. And I have no clue why you went with this vendor. We were very happy. Everyone was happy with what was being done. And I don't get it. So now I'm going to use that there's no problem till there is a problem regarding the overlay district. Last night, the Soundview was, the site plan was approved, which is fine. I have never seen a project. I read a lot about other towns, different things that go on, listen to people talk, and I've never heard of a particular project that has made so many kind of excuses why don't you approve us? If we don't do this, we're not going to, if we don't get approved, we won't do this. We won't do this. We won't do this. So the point I'm getting at is the overlay district put in place 3 potential projects. The hotel, the Gardenia Hotel, as Mr. Fawn calls it, it's the Gardena Hotel. The Overhill Farm, or Underhill Farm, and also the one over in Osceola, which Mr. Grace said was the best project ever going to be done. He made a proposal here about that. So my comment is simply that the Gardena Hotel, they're going to charge $300 a night for a room. And the other places are going to have $800,000 to $900,000 to live there, and $1.1 million for a townhouse, and $4,000 a month to rent, and $2,000 a month carrying charges. So what happened to all the seniors that was were all marketed for the seniors in Yorktown who can all afford that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Good evening, Susan Siegel. I have a question about the $59,000 fine for the garbage. Could you explain how we go, what are our options for collecting it? For example, if we have to pay, I'll just throw out a number, $100,000 a month for his services, whatever the contract is, can that $59,000 be subtracted from the payment that he is due? Or if not, what else can you do? He doesn't have property in town, so you can't put a lien on it. So what do we do to collect it? Or does it just stay as on the books as paper? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
How you doing, Larry?
I
See you.
Larry Killian, 33-year resident. I'd like to continue my discussion about development policy. Towns all over the country are looking for ways to convert vacant space to other uses. It seems that we're going in the opposite direction by giving developers tax breaks to build more unneeded commercial space. In the 21st century of e-commerce, the value of existing retail and office space is declining. The tax break policy you're pursuing worked in the last century, but not now. It creates more vacant stores and accelerates the decline in the value of all existing town property whose owners are going to file for tax reductions. Previously, I mentioned a building on Veterans Road. Here are some more examples. 345 Keir Street, another building with part medical, a $17,000 reduction. 2013 Crompond, across from the Roma building, a $12,000 reduction. Cablevision, Verizon, Con Ed, a combined $183,000 reduction. Undeveloped land on the north side of 202, $29,000. Jefferson Valley Storage, $21,000 reduction. This outdated development policy will create a wave of tax certs that will far outstrip any proposed or projected tax increases from Underhill Farms. We need to change this development policy. And now on to tennis. Parks and Recs, they do a great job. But as we all know, they're underfunded. This has been brought to your attention on a number of occasions, but developers continue to be allowed to not pay their full rec fees. There's a number of examples. I'll email them to you, but I'll just talk to the last two there. When I mishit a tennis ball, it goes up like this, and it doesn't come right down by the fence. But this jungle here needs to be cleared. Just recently, I went into the weeds and found a thorn bush and came out bleeding. So that was quick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor Diana, members of the town board. I'm just here with two announcements. Sarah Wilson, 32-year resident of Yorktown Heights. Councilman Lachterman, you mentioned the Lions Club concert series at DeVito Field. I just wanted to let our residents know that at the August 6th show, Yorktown 100 will be hosting an EV show, car show, at the concert site beginning at 5 o'clock. So stop by a little early, see the cars, chat with the owners, learn about the wide range of electric vehicles that are currently available in all price ranges. Number 2, I'm here to remind you and our residents about our Yorktown Repair Cafe coming up this Saturday, 11 to 3 p.m. at Grace Lutheran Church at the corner of Curry and Gomer Street. Our talented and generous Fix-It volunteers will see if your beloved but broken items, lamps, small appliances, clocks, wooden items, bikes, ceramics, jewelry, can be fixed for free. We've had over 1,000 items that have been brought into the Repair Cafe over the past 5 years, and we've been successful in repairing over 75% of them. That's almost 800 items that have been kept out of the trash. And speaking of trash, I would say that it appears to me that it has been clear, as Mr. Kopstein said, that since the start of the new garbage and recycling contract, that the carting company was not up to the job, and while they were indeed the lowest bidder, they were not the lowest responsible bidder. And as a result, the services provided to our residents have not been at the level that we have come to expect from the previous provider. Hopefully that will be fixed very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
I actually have a question that might not be it. I want to know who is actually in charge. I'm a 30-year resident of Shrub Oak.
And your name?
And your name?
Dana Doyle, I'm sorry.
Hi, Dana.
This is the first time I'm here.
That's okay.
So, okay.
Welcome.
So, I just want to know who's actually in charge of caring for and dredging the stream in Shrub Oak. I'm a very good friend of a lot of the owners in the businesses in Shrub Oak, Lake Liquor, BBQs, or all the Calabria, all that, and they all got flooded. And everybody's concerned about that stream, and they have all kinds of stories about that stream, and then history going back with that stream, and people talking about that stream running onto the library. It's a beautiful, vibrant part of Shrub Oak that's not being cared for. And who is responsible for that? It's not about just the flooding. It's a beautiful stream. If you walk behind the library, it's disgusting. There's garbage in there. I don't understand what's going on. So that stream is not being cared for. So that everything's going up. And I walked past that stream the other day, and it stunk. It's terrible. So, and then on top of that, you have the marshlands that we're told not to build on, and they're still building on it. And I'm not going to even say the properties, but it goes back to the 80s. So Shrub Oak was supposed to have marshlands, and they don't have it anymore. So I'm just curious, just currently, who's in charge of caring for that stream and respecting the life of that stream? So
Thank you, Dana.
that's what I say. Thank you.
We know what hat you have on tonight.
Yes, my Snoopy hat. You usually ask what hat I have on. So. Ken Belfer, let me start by putting in a plug for the stream team that once existed in Yorktown many years ago. And if there's a way to look toward the future and reestablishing something like that, I think it's needed. And I just wanted to make some comments about the flooding and Mohegan Lake. You've heard the expression, water under the bridge. Well, in Mohegan Avenue, it's water over the bridge or the culvert, and as of yesterday, it was still over the road. The Highway Department and the Yorktown Police have been out there multiple times. The town has done everything it can to try to keep people from getting stuck by going through, even though people are driven right through barriers, etc., to make their trip home shorter. But it's not really a town issue. As of yesterday, the lake had dropped 10 inches already since the big storm, but it's still way over its normal levels, obviously, if it's over the road. The constraint is really the culvert under Route 6, which is a state DOT responsibility. And again, it's not that it's blocked or that the people have said, oh, the culvert under Mohegan Avenue must be blocked. Well, even if it was blocked, the water's flowing over the avenue.
Doesn't
Nothing's
matter.
stopping that. But as an example, I went after a thunderstorm sometime earlier in the spring to look at the Mohegan Avenue culvert, and the water, that's the outlet of Mohegan Lake, and it only has that one outlet. The water was actually running backwards. I took a video of it. The water was running in the outlet after a heavy storm. And once again, that's all about the capacity of the Route 6 culvert, because in that area behind, I still call it the Stone Church, but Argonne Brewery, there's a large wetlands area, and water runs into that from many different directions. And when there's very heavy rain, just the sheer volume of it, the Route 6 culvert can't handle, and that's what happens when Mohegan can't drain, the water running into Mohegan, because the water's pushing back from that whole area. So anyway, it was an extraordinary amount of rain, and hopefully this all will drain back down to normal levels soon, and people's property will no longer be impacted. But there are things the town can do, and there are things that are beyond all of our control. So,
Thanks,
anyway.
Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Good evening. Mike Capalbo.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, and I've been living here since the end of last century. And I just wanted to say thank you to you guys. You've had a lot on your plate recently, and I've been impressed with your responsiveness, your sound judgment, and the way you've been handling it. I think the town is very fortunate to have competent, responsible people who care and put the extra effort into helping their community. So I just want to give you guys a thumbs up. You've been doing a great job.
Thank you.
Aw, thank you.
And we should get another garbage contractor before you terminate the contract. Don't terminate the contract without anybody to pick it up. But anyway, once again,
We
great.
understand that part.
I'm sure you did. That fell under the competent part. Anyway, good job. There's been a lot on your plate lately, so keep it up.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Mike.
much.
Anthony Pichette.
I like the haircut, Aunt.
Oh, wow, it's been that long. Huh? Forgot I got it. So a couple things. First, it's been a while, so I just want to thank the Yorktown News for the cool spread for Pride. It was really cool. The colors around the edges, the design, it's kind of cool. Also, thank the town for getting that the water main break fixed, because a lot of people, I think, went right by my house on the detour, and there were, in comparison now it's quiet, so maybe I can't complain about traffic now, because in comparison it was like, wow. So you probably drove by my house at some point during that, so thank you for fixing that. I wanted to speak tonight. I know it's already happened and it's already approved, but I wanted to speak to you because you're on the planning board and you can't speak at the planning board meeting, but we were able to speak before, just to be clear. But that was a long meeting, and I don't even remember what I said there. So I wanted to repeat it here. I think I watched the last planning board meeting where they were talking about cycling, alternate ways of transportation. And the gentleman who spoke from the engineering company, I think John, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about walkability and walking around and having that ability to walk around there, and the what they're going to do to fix that intersection or work on the intersection. And I think they got a report from Westchester Planning Board saying, hey, maybe put a bike lane or maybe have it a little more walkable. And the engineer kind of scoffed, or almost didn't scoff. He's like, okay, what's that about? So I'm wondering, I don't know, maybe this plan or going forward, if there could be an alternate, like someone who comes in and speaks and maybe speaks to the alternate transportation, speak to another option besides just making it around cars, so that it could, like for this development, actually lead in, because I think it's really tough to imagine people are going to walk from there into downtown, because that area is still going to be very tricky unless they do something very specific, which I didn't hear. I just heard a lot of like, oh, well, it could be that way. So I don't know if everything is set in stone. Maybe it is because it's got approved, but I'm just wondering if you could push that or have maybe a conversation about that going forward, because I think the opportunity to think of an alternate way to get people down there, and also too, I know it's probably too late to even discuss this, but going forward, I wonder if there's a way to talk about having a maximum parking space as well, because I know, once again, I was listening, they were talking about 1.5 spaces, maybe even 2 spaces per person, and they're also talking about parking spaces on something that's not even there yet. So I'm just wondering if there's an idea, or ways to get transportation and other ideas, like you were talking about the shuttle route or a bus, increase the bus route so that people have that way, so not everyone clogs up the street with their car. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Amp.
Thank you.
I seem to be too late. Sometimes I turn around and someone's already stood up, so I don't want to be rude. Evening Supervisor, members of the board, my name is Tom Marin. I'm a resident. Full disclosure, I'm also a candidate for board membership.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. And I have a few questions. Sorry for taking off my glasses. I can't read with my glasses on. But first, I understand it's tough to gauge. But I'm curious as to, is there a way that we can find out how many residents have experienced a delay or a missed pickup with competitive carding? And how quickly does competitive resolve these kind of problems? This seems to be an issue, as we've heard. If the contract with competitive is breached, what'll happen? Will residents have to go through a prolonged period where their garbage and recycling simply isn't picked up? What can we do to prevent or alleviate these concerns? I think I'm not alone in this, but I feel strongly about this issue. We need to know the scope of the issue and what strategies are in place for solving it. And toward this end, there's someone outside handing out to Yorktown residents a card with a link to a website where they can log these things, so that we can get data on how many people are suffering from these kind of issues, and so that we can make that data public, and therefore help with the motion toward, if it needs to be that we have to get rid of competitive, then how do we do it in the most efficient manner, which is what you brought up earlier today. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to put my glasses on because I can't read without them.
Gosh.
So, Jan Mirchandani, 20-year residence, and also by way of disclosure, I am also running for supervisor, but I'm going to stick to my questions, so I'm going to just get right to it. A lot of people, I passed my recycling as I was on my way here tonight, concerned obviously like a lot of you, a lot of people here, but I do have some questions about really kind of how we got here, because it's great to move forward, but we also need to know how we got into the situation in the first place. So just have a couple of questions. So my first question is, Competitive filed for bankruptcy in 2019, and they were recently fined by the County Solid Waste Commission, and you guys just articulated tonight that they've been fined $59,000. So my question is, are they even financially stable to A, pay these fines, and B, continue to provide services in town? My second question is really about the equipment that they have. We've been seeing a lot of strange trucks, unmarked trucks, driving around with refuse and recycling. And so my question is, how many trucks did Competitive Carding have when the contract was signed? How many do they have now? And perhaps more importantly, are all of these vehicles properly licensed through the Solid Waste Commission? My third question is, Competitive lost a contract with Westchester County for allegedly failing to pay their workers their medical benefits. So my question is, are we confident that they are currently paying those benefits, and are we confident that they are paying prevailing wage like they're supposed to? So this leads me to my question about, I have to assume that you all had this information when the contract was signed. It's all public information. So my question here is, when these issues were raised as part of the vetting process, what was their response to you, and how did they answer those questions? And then lastly, and this was sort of alluded to earlier, assuming we do void the contract and we move forward, what are your plans to do to vet the prospective new vendor differently this time around so that we can find somebody who is both reliable and can afford to continue to service the residents of Yorktown? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Anybody else? All right, motion to close courtesy of the floor.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, we're gonna do it a little differently this time. I think I'm gonna have Sergio speak on the overlay district and stuff, being he is our planning board, et cetera, liaison, if you don't mind, Sergio. Luciana, on the Parks and Rec issue that arose, I'd like you to hit that topic. I'll speak about the garbage, and then anybody else can chime in. Ed, if you have anything, or Mary, if you have anything at that point in time, we'll go from there. Sergio, why don't you tell us a little bit about the overlay stuff and the questions that were asked thereof?
So I think, as far as the overlay district goes, I mean, it was actually, when it was voted in, it was actually a bipartisan vote. So I just want to put that out there, and it's intended to kind of combat the growing. I don't want to call it a threat, but the growing Amazon experience that has been taking over, our world. And that leads to a lot of commercial spaces being empty. Now, I know somebody mentioned the tax breaks, and the tax breaks on commercial property. I think maybe it was Dan. I don't remember. But it's the commercial property is also the apartments that they're building in at the Underhill project. But the rental apartments are considered commercial. And so, honestly, I really do believe that's something that we need in this town is diversity in housing stock. And we don't really have a lot of rental apartments. So I think the tax break there is appropriate, considering that it's going to give us something that we really need, as well as it's going to repair an intersection that has been troublesome for many, many years, and there's no opportunity that we see in the future. So, that's something that the overlay district came in. Now, somebody did say that, I don't remember who it was, I'm not calling out, that I'm on the planning board. I am not. I am the liaison to the planning board, and I just want to make that perfectly clear to people. I do not have any voting interest on the planning board. I am there as a representative for the town board, and the town board sends representatives to all our many boards to act as our liaisons, and that's how the process works. But as far as, Anthony, your walkability, I mean, I agree with you. I'd like to see, some kind of a bike program or something like that, where somebody could rent a bike and, do like a bike exchange like they do in the city. Although the project in the city, it doesn't, you look at some of these bikes, and it hasn't really kind of fruition into what I think a lot of people thought it would be, but it does help a lot of people. There is a path from Underhill, from this project, a proposed path that's going to allow people with a different traffic light to cross the street onto the side where there is a sidewalk to get into town. Now, I agree with you. It's a far walk. But, we can't move the property, so this way it's more adjacent to the center of town. I also, and we talked about it, I'm a big proponent of redesigning, our commercial area, just taking the Heights area right now, with Commerce Street. It was an idea from a long time ago, and possibly making it one way with on-street parking, so this way you could pull up and actually get out of your car as opposed to staying in your car. And I think that's something that the overlay district is very much in favor of doing, not making it one way, that's just an idea, but the idea that, to make the town more walkable, more accessible. So the overlay district isn't applicable in every instance. It's not the ideal thing for every piece of property in town, but it does fit on some pieces of property better than others. And there are always pluses and minuses to any kind of decision, project, just all around. So as far as the overlay district goes, I think it's a good law. I think it's something that's been proposed and utilized in many different facets in many other towns and has worked successfully. So that's what the overlay district, I think, brings to the table. It brings us more options and more things that we could possibly look at in developing and changing in an ever-changing time with a company like Amazon. I ordered toothpaste this morning. I got it, this afternoon. And I tried it. I was like, I got to really try this because the delivery today, I'm like, this is no way it's going to get delivered today. It was at my front door. I knew it was there. My dog was chasing a guy up my driveway. But
We got a call on that, by the way.
Yeah,
all right?
my dog, man. So anyway, so that's what I think, the overlay district can accomplish if it's utilized correctly. It's just another tool in the toolbox. And that's where I think we are with that.
Sergio, thank you. And Luciana is our Parks and Rec liaison, who works with them on a monthly basis during their meetings. So she may be able to answer the Parks and Rec questions
Sure.
that were asked.
So as the liaison, we're supposed to be quiet intakers so that we can transfer information. I'm not very quiet at my commission meetings, but I do want to address the tennis courts. I hear you. There's an ongoing list. I do want to reiterate what you said about Parks and Rec being very underfunded. And I'm the biggest advocate on along with many people on this board, for rec fees, because it's not so much what's happening for the developer, it's what goes out to the community. And our Parks and Rec needs it in order for us to be able, what the intent would be in my heart is that departments would be able to keep their revenue for what's needed. So if you have a pickleball court that needs to be attended to, the revenue that would be driven by pickleball would stay within pickleball. And if you have a tennis revenue that's being driven, the tennis courts would be maintained by its revenue and would keep some sort of straight line. I hear that I am probably trying to do something that, and I'm dragging this board with me on the 100 questions that hasn't been done in a very long time, but it's time that this town sees that departments stay in their lane, and I feel like Parks and Rec is one of those departments where we all benefit from. It's part of how we sell and we drive our revenue for our homes. It's what helps us raise our kids. It's where we can create the walkability. It's what makes the town attractive. It's where we learn stamina and grit and community, and it comes at a young age. And with that being said, as long as we can start to get that spreadsheet going, and I know that the supervisor has met with many members of the commission to transfer money and how to make it so that it can, there's no more thorn bushes, let's just say that, Larry. So we can get those thorn bushes out and be able to have the equipment to maintain it and have a plan to maintain the equipment. So the lanes are very clear. We have beautiful parks that have time limits, and each one of them needs to be met, and things will expire, and things will probably cost 30% more in 10 years from now or 5 years from now than they do now, and we have to budget accordingly. And one of the greatest things is that we have people that use our parks, and we have us that use our parks, and we all want to invest in our parks. So if we maintain the development in town and we keep holding on to the rec fees and we keep giving it to the departments that need it, and everything starts to have a balance sheet, hopefully in 5 years from now we won't be saying Parks and Rec is underfunded. I hope that makes any sense. But we're looking at it, I promise you, and I'm sorry about the bushes. I guess I can go weed them. I do that.
You can do that.
Yeah, I could do that.
You can do that. All right.
Dan, we're going. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Adam, could you answer some of those? Would you answer those high-level questions on the contract and the and so forth with? Where are we here?
Fines.
The
Yeah, I mean-
fines and the when we're going to default, how that goes about, and so on and so forth. And please explain the lawsuit, et cetera, that's involved at this point in time.
Sure. So, in terms of the fines were withheld from the last payment that was made. So
Mhm.
they've already been docked, if you will, at approximately $6,000.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is what the contract provides for. In terms of why they were selected, there are laws in place on how this process goes about, and those laws and that process was followed when the contract was bid out, last year. Ultimately, we're required to go with the lowest responsible bidder. They were the lowest bidder. They were deemed to have been responsible. The fact that there may have been bankruptcies in the past, there's case law on that, and frankly, this issue was raised in the Article 78 lawsuit that's been brought by the old contractor, and it doesn't make them not responsible. It just doesn't, as a matter of law. We have cases that say that. So if we had rejected them on that basis, we probably would have gotten a lawsuit by competitive carding, right? So, the town did what it did. It vetted it appropriately, and here we are. But, the process that got us to that point was properly engaged in.
I just want to piggyback on what Adam just said. I appreciate everybody's comments on the garbage. When the garbage contract went up for bid, one of the main concerns was maintaining our taxes, right? And everyone's taxes did go up, but it could have went up astronomical. The bidding process went out, and a lot of people in the world will decide who they want to bid on and who they do not want to bid on. Let's all get real. We're 43,000 miles. We're not a small town, right? So there's a lot of leverage. There's a lot of, and the cost of just gas and moving around, we're not that sexy of a town if somebody's trying to conserve on a bid, right? As a businesswoman, this is how I look at it. With that being said, at that time, we were under Supervisor Matt Slater, and we were all on the board, and there was discussions about how the bidding process works. And I was very thorough, speaking only for myself, on understanding what the bidding process looked like. And when it came to the basic line of it being the most affordable in the sense of what's going to raise our taxes, how much do we want to go up and whatnot, it came out that there were rules against how to bid. I assure you, when it comes to vetting, especially a garbage contract, if you dig, you'll find dirt on everybody. And we could do it on old garbage contracts, new garbage contracts. You could dig, you could find it. We vetted to the point where I think we also squeezed it as much as possible. I feel that the judgment that's coming out is almost as if we thought that going with this guy was going to make life so much easier. Going with this guy who had experience with the town was a safe route so that we could try to serve not only the garbage needs, but also our tax needs. At this point, we're not blind to what you see. I hear what Tom mentioned about keeping a log. Whether it affects 500 people or everyone, for me, we're all in it together. Because if it's not your garbage that's not getting picked up, it's a neighbor's garbage. So bring all the complaints, bring all the noise. We hear you. We're doing our best to, cap it in a way where all of us, those running, those not running, there's all these legal barriers that we can say and cannot say. So I need people to respect that we're on the street looking at this, but we're doing what we can. And B, which is most important, is if you see it happening or you see the trucks or whatnot and you bring it to us, then you can give us the intel that we need. I'm sure one of the Downton board members has seen it, but I assure you that it was done in the most transparent and good faith in getting what was best for the constituents. It was not done on the other reasons. Because, Facebook will tell you a whole other story. And I'm just kind of getting tired of reading about it when no one's actually personally calling me and talking to me and asking me the questions directly.
Facebook has become like the National Enquirer, folks. If it's on Facebook, it's got to be true. There was one particular item that I was made aware of today that it wasn't until my garbage wasn't picked up that this all took place, okay? Let me tell you something. My garbage hasn't been picked up on time for a long time, okay? So we know exactly. We're all town residents. It's interesting. Competitive carding there's a difference between competitive and competition carding, okay? Competition carding is the one that's bankrupt. Competitive is a carding company now. Competitive carding owes Solid Waste Commission $21,000, which they are on a payment plan for. $59,000, as the town attorney has said, was paid and taken out of their monthly pay Monday. The number of trucks, it's a moving target. Which one might be broke down today, which one might not. They had between 8 and 9, and they had at one point a couple split body packers. Now I think there's one. If you've noticed, they're out there picking up your cardboard with a rear packer, and then your other recycles, the other truck comes through and picks up after. This is not the way it's supposed to work, and we know it. The garbage delays are not going to be tolerated, and as the town attorney has said, the contract breach has begun, and that there will be more fines. And we are taking this very serious. And as far as the vetting, we looked at a garbage company that was going to save the residents $1.5 million over 5 years. We gave them the opportunity to succeed. Evidently, at this point, they have not. So, is the savings worth it to all the residents out there? I don't know. Maybe not. That's the way it seems to me at this point in time. But at this point in time, we are still going through the process of the vetting of other companies, and we're going through the process of the default. Let me make that perfectly clear. We have heard everybody. We know what's going on, but there is a process that we have to go through contracts and so forth to make this work. Adam, will you go through the process, please, on what will happen next with regard to the default process, and then also, I believe Ed has some information with regard to what we're going to do and the information that we're compiling at this point, and at some point I'm going to bring Phil up to go through what's going on his end so that everybody is aware. We, and I said it before and I'm going to say it again, we are on this. We've been on it. And for about a month and a half, we didn't get a complaint. That was unheard of. But then all of a sudden...
What he's saying is we've gotten complaints outside of that month and a half. There was 1 month and a half it was calm.
Was calm, yeah. For 1 month and a half, there was nothing. Everything seemed to be going good. You know, you get a missed pickup here and there. We get it. But that's a different story. But Adam,
Just before, can I make a comment?
let Adam go first. Adam, go through the default process, if you would, please, and how we're going to go about that.
Sure. So they're entitled to 7 days' notice to cure any violations before they can be terminated for a breach. We did send the notice. The 7 days has expired. So at this point, the town could take action to terminate the contract. But again, that has to be done responsibly, and we're taking significant varied steps to try to ensure, if the contract has to be terminated, that the transition is smooth. Next steps, the penalty provision in the contract continues, and penalties continue to accrue for every day they're violating the provisions of the contract that they can be penalized for. So that will continue, unless and until they are no longer failing to comply with their obligations under the contract. I don't know, did I touch on everything, or was there something else?
No,
Tom, can I ask Adam a question?
Not yet. So, the vetting process took a considerable amount of time, and quite frankly, folks, we were trying to keep taxes down for our residents and save everybody money.
and it's important to mention, taking you back in time, because, I understand, all the concerns, and it's really, no one up here is happy. But on December 31st of 2022, we were paying approximately $2 million a year for garbage pickup. On January 1st of 2023, we were paying close to $3.5 million, and it could have been higher than that. So there was that concern on the increase, because everything went up. Inflation was through the roof. I mean, just going back in time. Now, we did vet this with this person. Of course we did. He checked the boxes. And so we hired him based on him checking the boxes, and based on the enormous increase that happened overnight. Was that the best decision? Well, he didn't deliver. If he delivered, we'd be
celebrities.
We'd be celebrities. We'd be heroes. But all right. So, and there are some issues that are still ongoing, and that's why we took action. And making everything public. There's legal action that's going on, and so I think that was something that we have to be very careful and cautious on, not to put the town in any jeopardy or further jeopardy. So I'm sorry, Tom.
And there's certain things that we can't discuss. Prior contractor, there's a lawsuit between the prior contractor and the town of Yorktown. So, all that has to be taken into consideration also. Ed,
Sure.
you had a couple.
So the question was asked about well, there were two questions. One I'll address first. If any of us would just say, hey, I got a good idea, let's get rid of our garbage contract, and we don't have anyone in place, I don't think we should be sitting up here. We will vet other people for emergencies and make sure that if we do have to drop the hammer, so to speak, there will be a company in place. So there is not this, I think it was days and weeks of no garbage pickup that was stated at the podium. But then there was also the question about the lists and what, how that is out there. And just so you know, some great work being done by both our supervisor's office. I think Jenna has been point on that.
Yes.
So Jenna Belcastro in the supervisor's office, you could call about complaints of the garbage, and also refuse and recycling. Both of the young ladies working there have been diligently compiling lists, as well as Jenna, putting it together. Phil Marino has asked one of his people to go out to the areas, I think he's stressed before, take photographs and have photographic proof that's dated and timestamped saying, hey, this recycle should have been picked up on Tuesday, and look at this whole block on Wednesday that's still there. So, the best thing any resident can do with a missed pickup complaint or where your section isn't picked up is contact our supervisor's office with Jenna Belcastro. Phil, it's Nicole, and who else is?
Kristen.
And Kristen taking notes in refuse and recycling. So please get them in there. That also helps us in the process of knowing how big the breach of contract is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way around that there.
And it's not that we don't know, because quite often I will go out on my way home or on my way in, or sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning, and go right around the particular streets that where the trash and or recycling should have been picked up. Mary?
No, I just had a question, Tommy. The stream in Shrub Oak, who do we have for that? Is that ours? That has to be,
I'll have to check on that.
yeah, check on
I'm
that.
not sure.
Dana.
Honestly, I'm not sure whether that is a state, town,
Right.
or county street.
Okay.
But in speaking
Because
to
that was county, East Main Street
Right.
was county, but you still have Route 132 that comes out just past the liquor store, that's state.
Right.
So, and 132 was county, but it's town, so I honestly don't have a
It's just
clear
not
answer
clear.
on that.
That's right.
Right.
And it's not, because and that's what people, that's what I try to convey to people. It's not just like, well, it's a town stream. Well, it's a town culvert. Well, not necessarily.
May not be.
And it's something that I learned because of the flooding with the property on Osceola, Lake Osceola. I delved into it. I had a 1 hour, an hour and a half conversation with Ken about Belfer, because he knows about Mohegan Lake and the association and how they maintain that lake, to get an understanding. Remember, Ken, and I appreciate your time, to get an understanding on what, how these things work, so I could convey that to the folks at Lake Osceola, to maybe get, because Mohegan Lake is it's humming, it's a very nice place.
But nothing is done in a vacuum. So even if you have a stream in your backyard, I know that the supervisor touched on this, the highway department, Dave Paganelli had touched on this. If your landscaper's throwing debris and clippings in it, it will eventually build up. I understand it's not your responsibility to clean it. Maybe you have a running stream and there's an easement, and the easement's with the state or with the town or with Tom next door. I'm not sure. But if we could all just be mindful, A, pick up your trash. B, if your landscaper's doing it, put it in compost, put it somewhere else. Don't put it in the stream, because eventually that's also what's happening. The debris, like your grass clippings and your pruning, ends up down the road, and then it clogs and it creates it coming backwards. So I beg you all, that we all have to do our part. And I understand you want to point the finger of who's supposed to take care of what. But I also feel like that was a really good point when someone said to me, well, yeah, then when there's no water, it feels like it's just this muck, and it's because of all the grass clippings or all the thrown leaves or whatever was sent that way. So I just want to remind us that we could all make little improvements.
Oh, and Dana, where's Dana? Dana
She
left?
stepped out, yeah.
She brought up the question of dredging, and let me tell you, you really want to anger the
DEP,
the DEP,
Oh, my God.
the DEC, the EPA, you name it. They will not allow any of that for you to dredge a lake or anything like that, because I guess a crude way of putting it is you let sleeping dogs lie. The amount of contaminants that you turn up that will be released into the environment if you dredge a lake or something like that. Stream is just incredible.
Right.
And so it's very, very hard to do.
But bringing back
Get
the
approval for it.
stream, what is it called? The stream team? Yeah, that I heard was very successful.
It was a successful program that, due to insurance and
Caused us
money
to-
situations, it was college people that had to be monitored, college and or high school, that had to be monitored by highway personnel, MEOs, and so on and so forth, that had to be there. If the chainsaw had to be run, they had to run it. It's insurance companies got involved in it, and it just became overly
No good
expensive.
deed goes unpunished.
And exactly, no good deed went
That was that.
unpunished. So that was that. It ended up costing a lot
More
of
times.
money. Adam, on this contract for the garbage, maybe we can put this to rest a little bit. Our next steps are what at this point? If you just reiterate what our next steps are to the public here, so they know that we're doing what we have to do.
We can continue to fine under the contract. The notice of default, deadline is come and gone. We can issue a termination notice if the town finds that that's in its best interest. And we're going to continue to vet options for replacement if termination is appropriate.
We want to make sure if termination is appropriate and the timing is right, that we are going to have someone or a company in place that is going to take over seamlessly. All right, that's what's most important. Because the seams are broken, ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time. And we're not happy with what's going on either. Phil, could you come up, please, and tell us what your girls are doing in the office and your guys are doing out in the field? Let's put this in ways that people can wrap their arms
First
or
of
heads
all,
around.
my office has all the records of missed material. Going back years, whatever company missed material, we have records of that. Right now, since they got issued the letter, we not only do I have people going out early in the morning. Also, like Ed said before, we're also taking photographs of that. The only thing I can just tell you is if your recycling or your trash is missed, just call my office. Don't think, they might not ask you for an address. If you say you live on Bond Street, they probably already got 7 calls of Bond Street. We're not taking down the information as 647 Bond Street missed. We are taking the information out that all of Bond Street is out.
Right.
And the photos are also showing you not just one house, it's showing you the entire block. And these are things that my office is working very closely with Adam on this. So we are just trying to put everything together. Steps are definitely being taken. I know, people think that things can happen like that. It can't happen like that. I've been in operations my whole life. Things have to be set in place, and we're aware of it. Like I said, just call my office if you want to vent, or my girls are good at it now, or if you want to pass on some information. If you get a voicemail, that means both of them are on the phone. So just relax. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
And, moving on into fluoride, we are waiting at this point for the tide to go down in our fluoride building. During the construction of that, the water was coming through the floor or coming through the walls. We are in an attempt, for whatever reason, the engineering firm that took care of this was remiss in waterproofing properly or waterproofing at all. So we are taking it over to make sure that we can get the secondary containment for the caustic fluoride product sealed properly, because the health department, who has its own little checklist of things that it wants, has to be satisfied before we can put any active fluoride in there. Right now, all that's in there is a tote, as they call it, that they tested the system with some water in it, but that's all that's been through it. I don't know the actual procedure that they go through with that. That's not my bailiwick. But we are in the process now of sealing the secondary containment, making sure that we keep the water out of the secondary containment, because secondary containment has to be 110% more than the particular tote that happens to be in there, which supplies the fluoride to the system. But we have to make sure it's dry, and it stays dry. So we can't have, an extra 20% of water in there, and then all of a sudden that tote may break or may spring a leak or what have you, and now that caustic material is going onto the floor. So that is our issue, one of our issues right now. There's a few that the engineering department is working on, but that's one of our major issues. We've mitigated some of the water coming off the roof by putting gutters on it. Once again, I don't know why the engineering firm didn't put this in their bid to begin with, but they didn't. They didn't seem to think that water that ran off the roof ran onto the ground. I don't know. I don't get it, but they didn't. So we ended up having to go back and do that. So there's been many snafus on this whole thing that we are working through. But we want it right. And once we turn the switch on to make it go, Doc, we want to make sure it works good.
Thanks, Carl.
All right? Okay.
I wanted to just talk about the tax incentive stuff as well.
Oh, yes, Ed, go ahead.
Sure. So there was some questions, I think, Larry, about the tax incentives and some comparisons. And I was a little confused, and maybe we could talk offline, because I thought I heard things that sounded like the 485B tax exemption. I heard things that sounded like people going and trying to have their taxes lowered through a certiorari assessment and having their assessment lowered, and they're very, very different things. And the question had come up when Atlantic Appliance was it was pre-COVID, and they were looking to purchase a property. Actually, they had already purchased a property next to the post office, and wanted to build a new showroom and warehouse on site there. And someone had gotten up and was like, well, we should just make them build or make them stay where they are and go there. And the thing that you know, as a business owner, I realize is not every space works for what your needs are. And as someone who is pretty much a strict constitutionalist, if you have property and you have rights on that property, you should be allowed to exercise those rights. And that's what our laws deem, that's what our country deems, and that's where we should be. So you know, the tax incentives, just so people are aware, the 485B is our biggest commercial tax incentive, and that does not affect any taxes that are already coming in on a property. And by the way, it's a New York State law that we adopted back in 2016, I think. What that says is, if I own a property, and I'll use easy numbers, and it's $10 per square foot in tax that I pay, and I do a whole big renovation, and my assessment goes up to $20 a square foot. The first year, only on the new assessment, I pay half. So I would pay $15 a square foot instead of $20, and then that would go up 5% per year for 10 years. So not only are we getting the original taxes, but we're getting another 50% of the new tax, and the next year we're getting 55, and the year after that we're getting 60. So it's a plan that is drawn up to try to help, as we all know in New York, with the regulations, with everything that people need to go through besides professional services. I've seen Joe Rena probably bill a heck of a lot of hours for people because of the regulations that they need to go through. You want them to be able to make their property better, and you want to make sure that they have at least some incentive to do that. And giving them that little bit of a break on the new taxes helps to incentivize the people to say, hey, maybe I can make part of my money back, because commercial is business. And you know, without the businesses, we were in a lot of trouble. And I own a business that is strictly brick and mortar. You can't do it anywhere else. And it's a massage studio. And you know, we've looked at things where if my space wasn't working properly, where can I go and do something else? And it would be doing something in a new construction type of area. So you know, it all depends on the business, the needs, and where they want to go with that. So I just want to make sure that there was a little bit of separation. And anybody, it's not only commercial but residential, you know, if they feel they're being assessed too much on their house, they can go for a certiorari and try to have their taxes reduced. I know some of the places, I think the Cablevision building was mentioned. I know when Cablevision left, they lost a big part of their income. So they asked for their assessment to be lowered, but now that building's totally full. So their assessment has gone up, and we get that money back. You know, it's an ebb and tide as they do that. But you know, if they improve as they did, then hopefully it rents, and then you know, the assessment goes back up, and we're able to get that to recoup money and to get more in taxes.
Thanks, Ed.
No problem.
All right.
Oh, two things. Sorry. I did get a text from one of our veterans. It is the Jack DeVito Veterans Memorial Field, where the EV car show is going to be, and the concerts are held. And also, the Yorktown Lions this year with the concerts are doing a food drive, going to local food banks. So if you are coming out to see one of the shows, please bring some non-perishable foods. Actually, cereals are big. I know my wife just went to the store today and bought 4 boxes to give at the next concert.
Oh, I thought that was for you.
I don't eat cereal.
Oh, all right.
I don't like milk, so go figure. But please feel free to bring some food to that concert. Those are the 2 messages that I got. Thank you.
So I just got one last thing real quick. as far as circling back to the garbage, if anybody out there does have a problem, you know, I'm always around. Everybody here is always around. Email us. You know, we can help facilitate if there was a missed pickup or something like that as well. I know I've been getting plenty of texts on Facebook, private messages, and we get emails. But you know, we're here to help as well, and we have been helping, and we'll continue to help, and we'll continue to help facilitate that your recyclables and your garbage gets picked up. So just keep us in mind. We're here.
To that point, and I appreciate that, Sergio, but you were probably better off calling the offices, okay, so we can keep the notes on what we have to do and keep them in an orderly fashion, whether it's my office or Phil's office. The girls on both ends will take care of those and keep them in an orderly fashion so that we can get the proper numbers, because we won't jot them down. We'll just talk to people. You know, so it's better off calling R&R or my office at this point to indicate where the missed pickups are. All right, I think we can move ahead at this point. All right, this was called a public hearing, but it's really a decision on the public hearing to consider the application received from MJM Land Development Corp. for property located at 3232 Gomer Street to authorize the planning board to process a subdivision utilizing flexibility standards. There's Joe.
Oh, hello,
How are you?
Good. Hello,
Good.
everybody.
Hi, Joe. How
Good.
are you?
Good, good.
All right, give us the...
I'm ready. The subdivision will not generate any garbage, so you don't have to worry about
At
it.
all?
At
this-
all. That's it.
okay, good.
Don't make these promises yet. It's still very tender.
So, Joe, can you just tell us what the flexibility standards is? What
Sure,
we have,
sure. So, what the flexibility standards do is provide the planning board with a tool to vary the zoning code requirements, specifically the dimensional requirements for the size of lots, setbacks, so on and so forth, to adapt the project to the best fit the property, best fit the environment, and to best create the least amount of impacts overall to the to the site, still maintaining the same number of lots, because we've proved out the number of lots in a conventional point, from a conventional point of view. But now the planning board can say, okay, well, you know what, for example, we want to save this tree. Well, you can move this house a little this way and this one a little that way. Yeah, they're going to be within the setbacks, but it'll save this tree. You know, so it gives them flexibility to do those type of things. And actually, I would like to see the town use it more often for these type of projects, because it's a great way to get a sustainable project and protect the environment, you know, in a good way.
So I appreciate that, Joe. So I don't know, Adam, I'm going to address this kind of with you because sometimes I go a little rogue. But after our public hearing and the concerns around Cordial Road, did you go back with your client at all about just taking it out? I get what flexibility is. I get what the whole thing is. And I get how it can be an amazing tool, because not all properties are rectangle and not all properties are straight edged and whatnot. But I do know there was a lot of concern for safety purposes around Cordial Road, and I'm curious about any discussions that might have happened with your client about removing that, leaving the road as is and taking it out
right
of the
now
flexibility.
we're leaving it as is. We don't feel that the number of lots we're creating on that side is going to create a significant impact on Cordial Road from a traffic or safety perspective. So,
I understand the what ifs,
yeah.
but my thing is having flexibility allows you to expand the road or shorten the road or do what you want to the road. So this is why I'm going to you.
Well, I think there was
What's the question?
There was a conversation around Cordial Road being part of this wraparound and the size of it and what the sizes are. But right now, we're just talking about flexibility. Having this project have flexibility standards also includes Cordial Road. So my question is, if there was any discussion amongst you guys and their clients regarding Cordial Road maybe not being part of the flexibility standards.
planning board needs to be able to look at everything and look at the project holistically to determine what's, in the best interest of the site plan, in my view.
I think
So-
there was an I'm sorry, go ahead. Did I cut you off?
No, that's good. So then I'm looking at you, liaison.
I think there was an incredible amount of confusion tying the ingress and egress onto Cordial Road with the flexibility standards, and that's not the case. The road, as per their unapproved site plan that you showed us, is there, and it's 24 feet. From what I understand, is that accurate, or is it 25 feet?
No, it's 24 feet is a
24 feet.
town road, and we can make it narrower if the planning board
Just
feels it.
Just give me a
Go
second
ahead.
here. So I
Go
just
ahead.
want to clear it up because,
Yeah.
so right now, without flexibility, the road has to be 24 feet wide, and they can, pending, many approvals, have the road there anyway. So the flexibility doesn't affect whether the road is going to be there or not.
But I'm sorry, Sergio, the flexibility will allow it to be smaller and more narrow.
It can. It can.
The
It still
road
has
can
to
be
approved.
there,
Yeah.
but the planning board, and I'm sorry that John Tager's not here, but like the planning board has to approve the we're here to talk about flexibility.
Right.
My question here is simply if there was a further discussion around that.
And I think what has to happen is when the discussion really happens, like the flexibility is on us to either say yay or nay, but the discussion really happens at the planning board level when they actually go. They haven't gone to the planning board yet to say, hey, listen, this is what we want to do. And what they put up was something that they're kind of like envisioning. The planning board asked them to make a couple of, to think about it this way and that way because the project had different iterations. But it hasn't even started in the approval process. And that's, I think, where the discussions actually happen and the changes can be made. Now, I'm going to reserve my opinion on the use of Cordial Road. I drove that road. I mean, it is a narrow road. But like I said, I don't think this is a discussion for now.
I recognize that, but I think for me, it's the process of blessing the flexibility standards to go to the planning board.
So
correct?
here's one of the important aspects. This is not being asked for by the contractor. The planning board has asked for this to be able to work as they feel best with the property.
So, Ed, I understand. So I guess that's why I went to Adam to ask if we're going to talk about flexibility, is there a way to send a note to the planning board discussing that in this plan of the subdivision, there is a discussion around Cordial Road?
So the planning board will know that because everyone will have that opportunity to go back and see them. The planning board is aware of it, as the applicant is aware of it. So, that John Tegeter was in the room that day. So believe me, our planning board is well versed in what some of the challenges that the community are on it. And this is just a vote to say, do we give our planning board the range of motion, so to speak,
Or the authorization.
Yeah, to use that flexibility, and those are the professionals that are in position, and even our volunteer board all have experience consummate to these decisions. I have no issue with it. I did have one question, Joe, just to the conversation earlier with the clerk, just to know that this would not allow any adjustment up on the unit, the amount of units, correct? This is just
Correct. So the way it works is we have to prove out a lot count on the conventional subdivision that meets all the requirements, and that sets the lot count. So the lot count will not change. It just,
okay.
as I said, gives them the
Right,
ability
so
to.
that question was out there, so I wanted
Yeah,
to make sure we
yeah.
address it. Thank
Absolutely.
you. So
So
there's
Joe,
no
I got-
density change.
So Joe, I got a question for you. I'm sorry, Mary, you have a question?
No, I have no issue.
So I got a question for you. First of all, Luch, I did briefly mention to John Tegeter yesterday about Cordial Road. He's away. He has a family emergency, so he's not here right now. But I did kind of like very briefly mention to him that there are concerns. As far as an as of right on this property, what is the as of right on this property right now, today? Do you know?
13 lots.
13 lots. Already done. It's as of right, it's approved that, you know.
Well,
that's-
nothing's
The site
approved-
plan, you have
Nothing's
to go through
approved, but
site
we
plan
proved it
approval.
out.
And you're
We've proved
proposing
it
how
out.
many lots?
13.
Okay.
Yeah.
At this point, 13 single-family houses on this lot. Now, I know this really has nothing to do with the flexibility, but I do, Diana, did we get any written comment back on this? Any comment back at all?
I did not receive any.
Okay,
No.
planning board did not either, correct?
I can't speak for the planning.
Oh, okay, all right. You know, during one of my constituent visits the other day, one of our constituents there's house was flooded very badly, so I'm going to be very vigilant on making sure that the proper mitigation, and I know this has nothing to do with it, all right, but I want you to know that the proper mitigation is done on that particular lot, depending on what the flexibility is, whether the houses go back that far, we move them up, or whatever the case might be. But I think that you know, that indicated to me that there is a problem. Okay, and yes, it was the 100-year flood with 8.9 inches of rain, or 9.9, or whatever it turned out to be. But I'm very concerned with the lay of the land and the way things run there on how the water's going to flow and where it's going to be retained, and if it's going to be retained with that particular piece of property. Because we know what happens once you get the culverts in the ground, you got the driveways, you got the blacktop, and stuff starts running in ways that we don't consider it. Even when they put extra catch basins in, that sometimes don't work properly. So I'm going to be very vigilant on that. But with regard to the flexibility standard, I think we can put this up to a vote to allow or disallow the applicant to, or the planning board, I'm sorry, to use the flexibility standard to come forth with a plan so that they can continue to use the wetlands and the wetlands buffer, hedge them, so to speak. I think that's what the main gist of this whole flexibility is, if I'm not correct, right, Joe?
Yeah, and you know, it'll reduce the amount of overall disturbance. It'll reduce the amount of impervious area if they decide to narrow the road. So that has an impact on stormwater runoff. So there's a lot of benefits to that. Yeah.
Okay. Board, how are you feeling with this?
Let's get a vote.
Okay, do you want a roll call, Diana, on this one, or? Not necessary? Okay, yeah.
If you want.
No, okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion to give the planning board the opportunity to use the flexibility standards on 3232 Gomer Street. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, we're going to go on to number 10, resolutions. Did you want to hold this off, Serge? Do you want to go back to that one, or you want to just go through it?
No, you could take it along by itself. if you
Okay,
can.
we'll do that one just right now. We'll take it alone. Authorize comptroller to proceed payment to Garland DBS Inc. for work completed on roof repair at the Albert A. Capellini Center. And can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Okay, this is from the engineering department. Authorize release of wetland bond for work done at 1767 Jacob Road in the amount of $10,000. I'm going to take the next one out. I'm going to go back to that one.
Okay.
Okay, from the Mohegan Lake Improvement District, authorize supervisor and comptroller to execute a payment requisition form and dual certification for DASNY to reimburse $100,000 towards the Lake Mohegan Restoration Project. There's somebody's waiting for that vote. From the Parks and Recreations Department, authorized bid for T-shirt and uniforms for use townwide. And then we're going to award a bid for virtual reality training simulator for the police department.
That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
And yeah, it is pretty neat. And then we're going to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with East of Hudson Watershed Corporation for the stormwater retrofit project. That's the gentleman that was here last week. Okay, can I have a motion on the ones that I read?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. All right, I'm going back to the authorized increase in the amount of $4,000 to the Mohegan Avenue retaining wall pursuant to the option professional service agreement with Charles Manganero PC. Be it resolved that the contract for preparing the plans for the Mohegan Avenue retaining wall is increased by $4,000 pursuant to the option in the professional services agreement with Charles, dated July 2016. I'm going to pull that out for more investigation to find out why all of a sudden from 2016 till now we're just getting a bill for this, or what's going on with this one. I don't quite understand. So I'm going to pull that out for more investigation.
I think that's prudent.
Okay, trying to be fiscally responsible, for all our taxpayers' money. I want to know exactly what it's for and have a detailed description before we go forward. Was it a bill that was forgotten? Now all of a sudden 2016 they remember about it? I don't know. So we're going to pull that out. One quick notice. Notice is hereby given that the town board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, August 1st, will be moved to Wednesday, August 2nd. Wednesday, August 2nd, at 7 p.m. We're going to have it at the Links at Valley Fields Golf Course. The reason we're having it on Wednesday rather than Tuesday is because Tuesday is National Night Out with our cops. So I think that is a laudable cause. So we're going to move the meeting up back, I should say, one night. But we're going to have it at the Links at the Valley Fields Golf Course, 795 Route 6, Shrub Oak, New York, at 7 p.m. Okay, so that's just a public notice to everybody.
Sounds nice.
And that should be fun.
Should be fun.
That should be fun. We're going to be having it under the pergola that's there. The pergola, if it starts to rain, has a retractable roof that goes back down, so we'll stay dry. Okay, and sides that come down, so we'll really stay dry.
Dinner on the supervisor?
And the dinner will be on Ed Lachterman. So, okay, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night,
Opposed?
Yorktown.
Good night, Yorktown.
I hope they sell a can of beans that we can split.